Welcome to Engineer U Masterclass, building Nigeria's engineering capital for economic development, engineering the future of national prosperity. I am Oladimeji Olutime, the co-founder and executive director of Engineers Without Borders, Nigeria. Now, Engineer U is a place where we make engineers better and valuable. We have programs that will help you develop your engineering capital so that you can deliver value to your organizations, your nations, your community, wherever you are. So, welcome. So, we all know that Nigeria is actually facing a lot of economic challenges. And because of that, we blame a lot of government. And we feel that if we can just change government, uh, these things will get better. But then we've been having changes of government over the years, and it's not actually getting better. So we keep wondering, what's actually the case? So most people resolve and end up with saying that Nigeria is cursed, Nigeria will not work. But then that is not the truth. Yes, we face unemployment, underemployment, low manufacturing output, we're import dependent, and we there are infrastructure deficit, low productivity, and limited industrial competitiveness. As a result, all of those things are actually linked together. So we have those challenges. So this is why most people think that Nigeria will not work. But the key question is this, that we may not have asked since independence. What drives sustainable economic development? You see, at independence, what was passed to us was political power. And we picked that political power and run with it. We didn't actually get to understand what develops a nation economically. So we thought we knew. There were industries at that time that British handed over to us, but gradually from 1960 to around late 70s and early 80s, you get me, that we took over those companies because we were not trained. Those companies began to lose out. And some of them got bankrupt, some of them moved out of the nation. And then the experience we're having today started at that particular time until date. Nothing has actually changed because we have not answered this particular question. We've talked a lot about things, but we've not talked about what actually drives sustainable economic development. Now, they are not raw materials. We have natural resources all over, but they are not natural resources themselves, and neither are they government. The government has collected loans. Since we know Nigeria, government have been collecting loans, and those loans have not actually translated into economic development. Different kind of programs have been done, SAP, and so on. But then it has not actually resulted in it. So it is important for all of us to sit down and ask ourselves, what is actually causing all this? Why are we experiencing this? Why, with all the effort, all the investments, all the natural resources, we're still not developed? And the answer is this: we lack the engineering capital. And it is the engineering capital, it's the ability to continuously solve problems, create value, and build industry. Somebody said, since independence, Nigerians have never solved one single problem. Now, instead, we keep piling problems upon problems. We haven't solved a problem. So why haven't we? Because we lack engineering capital. Now, the British, what they did was this, they trained the lawyers, they trained the economics, they trained the accountants, but they were trained to manage wealth that has been created because the only field that creates wealth is engineering. So they never trained us in engineering. They never showed us that economic development is actually dependent on engineering capital. Now, what is this engineering capital? Yeah, it is the collective mindset. It is the capability that you develop, the knowledge, the creativity you bring to the table, the systems, the institutions, and the talent that enable a nation to continuously transform ideas, resources, and opportunities into valuable products. And that is not what we're doing. We're not producing valuable products, services, infrastructure, industries, and economic prosperity. Every other thing is actually getting imported from outside the country. Because if we have our own engineering capital, then it simply means that we can actually export those things, not import any longer. Now, the engineering capital includes the human capital, which is developed in the university, innovation capital, which is product design, process design, system design, and so on. Something that make life better for people. Industrial capital, engineering capital includes industrial capital, building those particular industries, and then of course problem solving industries, capital. From problem solving, you find out that you have human capital, they solve problems, they innovate, and industry is developed. Now, the engineering capital is made up of two components. We have one is the engineering mindset, then the second one is the engineering capability. Now, the why does engineering capital matters? It does matter a lot. Um, for every single nation that has developed, engineering capital has been the basis of their development. And all the crisis we are experiencing in Nigeria is actually simply because we lack engineering capital, and there is no focused effort to build this particular capital. Yes, we're thinking of building the capital in terms of human resources, building capital in terms of money, maybe borrowing money, and so on. But to sit down and say, let's build an engineering capital, no, it has not been. And this is why we're bringing all of this to the table. Every developed nation built on engineering capital. Economic growth occurs when societies become better at solving problems, creating products and services, building industries, improving productivity, and commercializing ideas. Now, these are the whole things that engineering is supposed to be making happen. But because we don't have the right engineering, we only have the technical engineering, so we are unable to train students to actually do this. So, but once in a while, there are flash in the pan events that come up where students are told, oh, develop this technology and do this. Take, for instance, Naseni is actually running a program where students develop technology, then they are voted for. You get me? People vote for it, and that's flash in the pan. That is not a system building. You get me? Because by the time you end it, it's just an event. But if you want to change a system, you go back there and begin to train people. And that is exactly what happened in the US from and China from Tuskegee Institute, where you find students were actually trained in what it takes to build technology. The same thing Stanford. Well, I was in the university. There was Stanford program for industries. I remember I get them through IEEE. All of those things were built so that they can actually sustain their engineering and allow the engineering to sustain their economic development. When you have engineering capital, you have new businesses and industry coming up, you have better infrastructure, you have manufacturing growth, job creation, and prosperity. Now, when you look at the infrastructure that is actually being built by the government today, is actually one of its kind. On Abuja Road, and that particular infrastructure, road infrastructure, may last up to 50 years without actually developing large potholes because they are actually doing an awesome work. But again, when you look at it, you'll find out that on the stretch of the Abuja Road, there's only one particular machine that is actually doing that. What does that tell us? It simply say that possibly the technology has not really been adopted yet. So they are still at the testing stage. So that's why you don't have that much technology. All the technology is expensive. And if the technology is expensive, it also means that it is imported. So the company that is doing that particular project brought the technology in, and they may not be able to bring more technology. Now, imagine if we have the engineering capital to build that part, that technology, then it simply means we can actually build all our roads that way. So this is why engineering capital is actually very, very important. Now, I mentioned earlier that the engineering capital is broken down into two components. We have the engineering mindset, we have the engineering capability. Now, with the engineering mindset, you're able to see opportunities. Where people see challenge, you see opportunities, you see possibilities. You're able to pinpoint the potential of in challenges and the things that you can actually do. Because before engineers build anything, they have to see it. Before Henry Ford made the car, he saw the car working. You get me? That is the power of imagination. Before an engineer, civil engineer, see a building, build a building, he has to see the building. So this imaginative part of engineering is also what is lacking in our education. We are actually programming students to not to imagine things. We try as much as possible to make the mindset, push the mindset out of engineering. And as a result, people go in and don't understand that engineering has a mindset. And that particular mindset asks, what if? So they imagine new possibilities as a result of this question. Why not? You get me? They challenge status quo. How can this be improved? They look at something and they ask, how can this be improved? And then they look at challenges, where there are challenges, and they ask this question, what opportunity exists here? Now, that is the way engineers think. When you see an engineer who thinks some things are impossible and always is looking at identifying problems, wherever there are solutions, you identify problems, then you have an engineer who has not developed the engineering mindset. Now, there are five pillars of the engineering mindset that we came up with. We have cultivation, which is more like the growth mindset. That is the ability to see that you can develop your potential. There's no end to a system. There's no end to a community. You can actually do a lot of things. There's nothing called impossible. So it is a growth mindset. You're building yourself. Then curiosity. You see, every engineer must be curious. You have to try to understand the world. You have to try to improve the world because understanding the world as a system and how it works help you to begin to look at what you can do. Then you have to have abundance mindset. Abundance mindset doesn't mean that even when resources are scarce, abundance mindset will tell you that you can actually look for other resources that you can convert into these particular resources. Take, for instance, we're looking at how do we take the waste from some industries and transform those waste from those industries into raw materials for use in another industry where we may not have that particular materials here in Nigeria. So you see, that is abundant thinking. Then, of course, connection. Connection here simply means that you need to understand that everything is a system. And as a system, everything is connected. Everything everywhere is connected. Whatever action in one place is impacting, creating an effect in another place. Everything is connected. So just like Steve Jobs said, that innovation is actually connecting the dots. So you need to understand how to connect the dots. Then lastly, creativity. Every engineer needs to understand how to generate new possibilities and solutions and then design them also. Engineers begin to identify opportunities where others only see problem, and that is the essence of the engineering mindset. The next one is the engineering capability. Now, this is the execution engine of engineering capital. The Engineering mindset is the creation engine. Engineering capability is the execution. So, well, you see opportunities with your engineering mindset, you capture that particular opportunity with your engineering capability. So, we need to have the two, and the university system need to be training students to have the two. And that is what our outcome-driven engineering education is all about. It helps the university to all the student to create both. You are working on your mindset and you're also working on your capability. So engineering mindset answers the question, what could be? Then engineering capability, how do we make it happen? So because I have the capability, I should be able to make this thing a reality. So engineering capability is the ability to transform ideas into reality. You have a vision, and I can turn that particular vision into reality, just like Henry Ford. Henry Ford imagined an engine of a car, and he came and called his engineer, who he believed should have that capability to make it a reality. Now, when he told them to do it, they say it's impossible. Now, why is it that they say what he told them was impossible? They went the first time to try it. They say it's impossible. They came back. They kept coming back, but finally they got it. Now, what happened is this. When he gave them, he was the one that had the engineering mindset. He was the one that could see it. They could not. Yes, they have the capability, but they could not see what what he was actually telling them. So as they kept coming, kept walking, finally, they actually saw it and they captured what they saw and they turned what they saw into reality. Now, that is the way it works. If somebody has engineering mindset, doesn't have capability, that is going to be frustration. If you have engineering capability, but you didn't develop engineering mindset, you'll be limited in the things that you do. You won't be able to stretch because you need imagination to stretch and create new things. So when you look at engineering in Nigeria, almost all the things that we are doing are the things that have already been done. Now, why is it so? Simply because we are not imagining anything new. We've not developed that mindset that imagines anything. Our mindset only sees what we can see, only sees what the eye can see, what has already been created. So what do? Our final year projects, our researches, everything we do is actually based on something that somebody else has done that we hear about. Maybe we go on YouTube, we see those things. But to imagine a new thing, our mindset hasn't been developed to that particular extent. And this is where we need to take engineering to. Now, the five core engineering capabilities are problem solving. So we need to learn to solve problems. We need to design. We need to learn to design solutions, value creation, optimization, doing more with less, and innovation, creating new products and systems and industries. Now, by the time you have this, you begin to turn ideas into products, service, infrastructure, and enterprise. Because everything you can see started as an imagination. In Genesis 11, the people says that they wanted to build a tower that will reach to heaven. And God told them that what these people have imagined to do, nobody can stop them. Now, they imagined it and they developed the capability. So they were able to do it. So it is very vital that we develop the capability and we also develop the mindset. Now, how does engineering capital work? The first thing is this: your mindset identifies opportunities. It sees that particular impossible thing as possible. Then the next thing is this: you develop capability. With that capability, you develop solutions. Then you turn the solution into value, and then the value you create, you turn it into business and industry. And then the industry generates jobs and wealth. So opportunity to solution to value, and then to industry, and then to prosperity. Now, you have to follow this. It must start with the mindset. then followed by capability. So, but are we teaching those capability in our university? No. Even in industry, we're actually not teaching it. So, how do we do? In a talk with Korean was saying, oh, they want to stop some of those things. They want to move it out. No, no, you don't move it out. You have to structure that in the 5 years that students study in the university, you have to ensure that they build engineering mindset and engineering capability so that on coming out, you are sure that one particular student is equipped with engineering capital. By the time you have 20,000 engineering students equipped, they will be looking for something to do, not just sit down and look for a job. They will be looking for something to do. Now, engineering capital, the link between engineering capability capital and develop economic development involves improved productivity, reduces waste, increase competitiveness, builds industry, generate employment, and expand export. Now, when you have engineering capital in a place, that engineering capital will bring about higher GDP or stronger manufacturing base and improve quality of life. I've always said this that engineering alleviates suffering. Wherever you see people suffering, then it simply means that you don't have engineering in that particular place. So we need to get to a point where we enhance our engineering education so that we can build engineering capital and the livelihood of engineers, people in Nigeria will continue to improve and get better and better and better. Let's look at some example of nations. So a couple of years ago, a friend introduced me. I went to a friend's house and I saw a movie, The Men Who Built America. Now, it was actually an interesting movie. You have from Rockefeller, um, Henry Ford, Carnegie. Those were great men. They built United States. And but what is the instrument they built US with? Engineering. You see, from railroads to electricity, energy, to manufacturing, to aerospace, to information tech. Now, when you look at what those men were doing, it all revolves around engineering. And they work together. Rockefeller was in oil, Henry Ford was in car. There was this other person that was making tires. Now, you need tire for your car, you need fuel for the car. You see, they built an ecosystem of engineering. Till today, engineering is continually building America. Now, if that is what is building the United States into a global industrial and technological leader, then we need to learn from it. And China did. When China got to understand that it was engineering, they sent their people to United States, to the best universities in US to learn, not just to the universities, but also to the libraries, to the communities, to see how those engineers work. And they brought back those particular engineers back to the China and they build their universities. You get me? They build their universities. Nigeria is trying to develop and we want to industrialize, but we don't care about engineering. And that is where a bigger challenge is. How can you build an industry without, first of all, making sure that your engineering is actually producing students that are equipped with engineering capital? It won't work. And that is why it's not working for us. We have different programs, but none of those programs is actually focused on how do we build engineering education. And this is what we are doing here. Now, you have China, Singapore. If you look at the underlying thing they focused on is technical education at scale in China and aggressive talent development, engineering talent development in Singapore. So the foundation is actually that engineering education. Every other thing builds on that. China became the world manufacturing powerhouse, and Singapore became one of the most competitive economy. Was made possible by engineering, not Leadership. Leadership is important, but get the engineers right. If you get the engineers right, you get the leaders right. And China, it is said that all the leaders in China were engineers. I don't know of Singapore. All the leaders in China, because there's a way engineers think that is actually entirely different from the way others think. So build engineering talent first. South Korea, Germany, the same thing. Um, I read the story of South Korea and how South Korea actually developed, and it is an amazing thing. The same thing Germany. Hitler actually built the foundation of Germany, engineering in Germany. That was what he did during his time. He was actually building engineering. You get me? He built engineering to the extent that engineering became so excellent and qualitative. Engineering education reform in South Korea transformed South Korea. Even North Korea, their focus is engineering. But then developed nations like Nigeria, we focus on things that are not really don't really matter. Even medical profession gets better when you have better engineering. Agriculture gets better when you have better engineering. Every other field is dependent on engineering. Today, South Korea is a global tech and auto powerhouse, and Germany is actually the largest manufacturing economy after China. In as much as they are actually getting missing it now because the Chinese population is getting older. They don't have younger people going into those particular fields. But still, you find out that what Hitler did is still much more um, happening in China. So, how do we go about building Nigeria's engineering capital? We have to start with reforming engineering education. And that is where our outcome-driven engineering education model is actually very, very important and very vital. Uh, in that particular engineering education, we need to focus on building engineering mindset, strengthen engineering capability, then connect universities to industries, connect universities to communities, and then encourage innovation and manufacturing within the communities and also within industries. Now, in the communities, we have research output and student project coming in and starting up factories because the community will be a living laboratory for innovation. Then for the industry, you have engineering talent, engineering capital, students with engineering capital coming into industry to bring new products and new technologies into them. Then, of course, the government continually encourages, so it becomes a cycle where that is done and we keep producing more. So, lastly, engineering Nigeria's future by building engineering education. The nation that dominates the future will not simply have resources, they will have the engineering capital to transform resources into prosperity. And if we cannot do that, China and other nations will come and pick our resources, develop it, and import and we'll go there and import some of those things and we'll complain, but then we can do nothing about it until we start investing in our engineering education. And that is the way to build the engineering, that's the way to build Nigeria's engineering capital so that we can develop.